Hello, welcome to Raymond Castile's Basement of Horror. This is a follow-up to our Shadowbox Collectibles episode. We're going to look at ghosts. You know, before we looked at Bigfoot and Yeti and Loch Ness Monster and aliens, and now we're going to look at ghosts. I told you in that episode that they also made a series of ghost figures. Now, when I dug them out, I discovered that there's only 4. I thought there were 6 or 8. There were only 4. So I thought, you really can't make an episode out of just 4 figures. So I'm going to augment this with another series of ghost figures, the Haunted Mansion figures. So here, the main subject of our episode, I think, will be these. These are Shadowbox Collectibles ghosts. And because there's not very many of them, we will also talk about these Haunted Mansion figures, also ghosts. So this is a little ghost episode, not the band Ghost. We had an episode on that a couple years ago. No, this is ghost action figures. So in the previous Shadowbox episode, I talked a little bit about the company. There's not much to say. There was that mysterious address, which is, well, you know, now they have a post office box. They've moved up in the world with these ghosts. And these are made a little bit later. These are 2000, copyright 2000, Shadowbox Collectibles, Inc. And now they're still in Miami Springs, but they're at a post office box. They're not out of some guy's house. That's all those monster figures and everything. The address for the company was a guy's house. Somebody's house, a residential house. Now they've got a post office box. But I really don't know anything about the company, and I was hoping maybe as a result of that episode, some information would come to light, but it did not. No one's come forward saying, hey, I own that company, or anything cool like that. Nah, it didn't happen. So I still don't know very much about the company, except that they specialized in paranormal toys. Cryptozoology and mythology and aliens and ghosts. So let's take a look at one of the ghosts. That's pretty cool. That's Napoleon. There's the card. There's that Shadowbox logo. That's the logo of the series. Famous ghosts. And they glow in the dark. They're not articulated. Maybe the neck is, but that's it. They're just solid plastic figurines, much like the aliens. The aliens were about the same size, same construction. And they were on a clamshell. Well, I wouldn't say a card. They were in a clamshell, a little bit bigger than the figure. But the aliens also came with these collector cars, just like these ghosts. I wonder if they ever considered putting the ghosts out in the same clamshells as the aliens. So these are very similar to the Alien series that Shadowbox put out in size, construction, and they've got the little collector card. And apparently there's some historical facts about Napoleon on that card. Here is the back of the card. Here are all the ghosts, just 4 of them. 4 ghosts in this series. Some information about the ghosts. And supposedly, these are all ghosts that people have actually seen. Now, these are not just any ghosts. These are famous ghosts. That's why it says famous ghosts. 3-dimensional apparitions from the dark side. Famous ghosts glow in the dark. Ghostly recreations of the world's most famous spirits. Each eerie figure includes a collector card filled with ghostly information. Is that ghastly or ghostly? Ghostly. Ghostly information. A truly haunting collection. And this is Napoleon Bonaparte, 1769 to 1821. And looking at the neck, I don't think that neck's jointed, so I don't think he has any articulation at all, even the neck. It's an odd color. I guess it's, I suppose it's a white glow plastic, probably very rigid. I've never opened these up, of course, so I don't know if it's pliable or not. But there's no articulation, zero. Just like the aliens, they had no... All of these Shadowbox toys, really, they all have zero articulation. And that's Napoleon, so apparently people have seen his ghost. So they say. Here is Abraham Lincoln, and of course when you think Abraham Lincoln, the first thing you think of is ghosts, paranormal. You think of Civil War, Gettysburg Address, Ford's Theater, etc. You think of all that later. The first thing that comes to mind is the spirit world. Abraham Lincoln, ghost. Not Abraham Lincoln, vampire hunter. Abraham Lincoln, ghost. The great leader of our country that got us through the Civil War. He is a ghost. I like that he has red eyes. Is he evil in the spirit world? Has Abraham Lincoln turned evil as a ghost? Maybe all ghosts turn evil, I don't know. There's Lincoln. He's got his top hat. I can't see what that is. That little, is that the Emancipation Proclamation? Is that the Gettysburg Address? Is that a program for the performance at Ford's Theater? I can't see with the naked eye. I'm sure on video you can see exactly what that is, but I can't see what that is. What is he holding in that hand? I know that's obviously a top hat. Abraham Lincoln, 1809 to 1865. Honest Abe, the ghost. Now, on the back it mentions the Lincoln bedroom in the White House, so apparently people see Lincoln's ghost in the Lincoln bedroom. This is an interesting one. This is Anne Boleyn. And I didn't know at first who this was supposed to be until I read it, and then I honestly, I had to Google her. I hate to admit. But she is the mother of Queen Elizabeth and the second wife of Henry VIII. And she was beheaded. Why was she beheaded? Well, you know, Henry VIII was kind of a nut. You can go online and read her history and find out all the Machiavellian and Game of Thrones nonsense that was going on during the reign of Henry VIII. Her ghost is supposedly seen in the Tower of London. I don't know if it walks around with its head in its arm like that. But I think because of that feature, the fact that her head is severed and she's holding her head in her arm, I think that makes this one maybe the second best of this set. And it looks like she's levitating. Yeah, there's no feet there. She's just levitating above the ground. So this figure actually does look like a ghost. I mean, it's what you would expect out of a ghost figure. It's a spooky figure. Anne Boleyn, 1507 to 1536. All right. I like that they're all different colors too. That's cool. Very colorful. Now this I think is the best one and my favorite one just because of the who it is. That's Edgar Allan Poe. Now we're talking. Edgar Allan Poe. There he is. And I think, even though that, I don't know if that's really such a good likeness of Poe, but I think the fact that it is supposed to be Poe, he's got the red eyes, and he's got a raven on his shoulder. Of course, it's not black, because it's a ghost raven. But he's got a raven, top hat and cane. He's spooky looking. He's green. Green with red eyes. But just the fact that it is supposed to be Poe, and it's got a raven, I think that makes it cool. So this is my favorite of the set. I think it's the best one, and I think Anne is the second best. But it's hard to beat Edgar Allan Poe in a ghost set, a ghost toy series. I wonder if this was the first action figure, if you want to call this an action figure. Was this the first action figure of Edgar Allan Poe? I know that there's a kind of a novelty figure of him now. Who makes it? Is it Accoutrements? I'm not sure. I think it is. But it's sort of like almost a joke toy. It's the same company that makes the Bigfoot action figure and the Cat Lady, another weird, a Jesus action figure, a lot of weird action figures. They also make an Edgar Allan Poe, but it's kind of a joke figure. I think this is the first time anyone made an action figure or a toy of Edgar Allan Poe, I think. So that's kind of cool. It's kind of historic in that regard. Edgar Allan Poe, 1809 to 1849. He was only 40 years old. Still a lot of mystery about how he died, why he died, what happened to him. A lot of theories about what led to his death. So that is the Ghost series. And if I'd known there were only 4 of them, I would have just included it with the monster video, with the cryptids and the aliens, but I thought there were more of them. So that's interesting. That concludes Shadowbox Collectibles. What a weird mission they embarked upon in the mid-90s to bring all these paranormal creatures to toy shelves with all these weird kind of knick-knacky sort of PVC figures. And I know you can go to any sort of a hobby store, Hobby Lobby or Michael's, and you can find bins of PVC animals and dinosaurs and dragons. It's, you know, it's not a big deal now. But back then, it wasn't so common. That kind of toy was not as common or as widespread at the time. And toys of something like Bigfoot or Yeti, that was not common at all. That was a special thing in all those different aliens that you saw. If you haven't seen the Shadowbox Myths and Legends video, watch that. So this is like an addendum to that video. Now, something I wanted to show you since Poe is in that set. I mentioned this at a previous episode. This book, The Complete Stories and Poems of Edgar Allan Poe. It's seen better days. This is my childhood Edgar Allan Poe book. I've had this pretty much all my life. And yes, I was pretty rough with it. I love the artwork on it. That screams Edgar Allan Poe right there. And there's the man. I remember in 2nd grade, I did a book report on this. And the teacher threw it out. She said, "What are you doing? A book report on the complete stories of Edgar Allan Poe? Give me a break. I was studying Poe in college. You're not reading Poe in 2nd grade. Take this back and do a real book report." So I had to redo the book report about some kiddie book. I think I told the story before. The teacher, the 2nd grade teacher, just couldn't, her name I think was Gash, G-A-S-H, Mrs. Gash. She just couldn't believe, she thought I was lying. She couldn't believe that I would do a book report on, on this. So I had to go back and, I don't know, find some kind of C-Jack run or some stupid thing, I don't know, and redo the book report, or she was going to give me a 0. But yeah, I'd been reading this since I could read. Even when I could not read, I was looking at it. Kind of like Famous Monsters of Film and Magazine. I couldn't read. I would look at the pictures. I would just look at it and just try to imagine reading it. So when I could read, this is one of the first things I could read. When I learned to read, one of the first things I did read was this book. Loss of Breath. How to Write a Blackwood Article. What do we have here? What is this story? Ah, The Fall of the House of Usher. That's a recognizable title. What's this one? No. William Wilson. I haven't looked at this in a long time. And of course the humor and satire, it's divided into genres. Tales of mystery and horror, of course those are the ones I wanted to read. Humor and satire, I was like, I don't know about that. The poems, Flights and Fantasies. I kind of liked the poems actually as a kid, some of them. But definitely as a kid, that first section was what I gravitated toward. The Murders in the Rue Morgue and Cask of Amontillado and The Oblong Box. So oh my goodness, it's falling apart. This is my childhood Poe book. This and Dennis Gifford's Pictorial History of Horror Movies. Those were my Bibles. And my childhood Dennis Gifford book is, well, it's beyond falling apart. It doesn't even have its cover anymore. I'd like to get a nice copy of this just to have it, you know, as a kind of a collectible. But this is my childhood one, so that's important to me. So I thought I'd share that. Okay, now let's look at these Haunted Mansion figures. I don't know very much about these except that they were sold at Disneyland and Disney World. And they're 21st century. But there's no date on them. But I'm going to say, 10 years ago or thereabouts. 2010, something like that. And there's no company other than Disney. It's copyright, no date, just copyright Disney. That's it. Copyright Disney. Then below that it says Disney theme park merchandise. So these were sold in the theme parks. And that's where these came from. A friend of mine got these for me. These are basically theme park souvenirs. And these are articulated. In fact, they're quite articulated, more than you might think. I wish the cards were a little fancier. It seems to me that the cards are just a little on the plain side. I'd like some, like, see though, that kind of imagery. I want more like that. The cards are a little generic. I'd want something that looks like you're inside the haunted mansion with stairs or cobwebs or ghosts flying around. Traveler Hitchhiking Ghost includes hat and suitcase. Now there are 3 hitchhiking ghosts when you leave the ride. They're trying to hitch a ride, and then you pass in front of a mirror and you can see one of them sitting beside you in the mirror. So obviously he's not really there. But now is it, oh, it's been a few years since I was on the ride. I don't remember if it's just one person per car or 2 people, because how did that work now? There must be like a space between, if there's 2 people, there must be a space between, because in the mirror it looks like it's sitting beside you, one of these ghosts. So you go past these animatronic hitchhiking ghosts, and of course you don't stop to pick them up, and then you pass in front of this mirror, your car, and then you see that one of them is sitting beside you in the mirror. Not in real life, but in the mirror. And I really loved going on the Haunted Mansion. I've only been to Disneyland. I've never been to Disney World. But I've been to Disneyland, you know, several times. I don't know how many exactly, but several times. And one time I went there, the crowds were very thin. It was a time of year that was not crowded, and I just kept going on the Haunted Mansion ride again and again. I'd get off it and go back in line and do it again. And one time I was on it and it broke down, and the ride stopped and they turned on the lights. And that was kind of cool. I could see how everything worked. And it was like, I don't know, 5 minutes or so, then they got it running again. But if you've never been on the Haunted Mansion, I haven't been on it in a long time, and so maybe it's changed. I don't think it's changed that much, though. But if you've never been on it, it's really exciting. Of course, everything's practical. It's not some kind of digital experience. Everything's practical. Everything's like a magic trick. Ghosts that appear and disappear, and entire scenes that appear and disappear. And the first time I went through it, I didn't know how any of that was possible. You go past a room that was like a cobweb-filled ballroom. It was all dusty and filled with cobwebs, and no one was in there. And as you move past it, all these dancers would appear, and they'd be dancing around, and they were all kind of ghostly. And then the cobwebs would disappear, and it'd become clean, like it was new and lived in. And as you move past it, then it would turn back into the old cobweb empty room, and then someone would be on I think there was an organist that would appear and disappear. And it's all really there. It's not a projection, like, you know, a movie on a screen. It's all really there. And at first I thought, how is this possible? It's like, is it a hologram? A lot of people think it's a hologram. It's not a hologram. You can Google how, because now the secret's out. You can just go online and read how they do it. But it's all very much like a magic trick. It's not like some kind of high technology. It's a magic trick. And they use techniques that magicians use. to pull all that stuff off and to make those things happen. Now, there's also animatronics, robotics, and stuff like that. There's also that. But a lot of it is just illusion and stage magic techniques. Which one is this? This is another Hitchhiking Ghost. This is the Prisoner. He's a cute little guy. He's got his ball and chain. Hard to see their features. But they are translucent like that. When you're in the ride, they look like that. And of course, when you see them sitting next to you, they're definitely translucent. Here's the third Hitchhiking Ghost, Skeleton. That's what he's called here. I think he's my favorite. He's the spookiest one. I think he's most people's favorite of the three Hitchhiking Ghosts. These are pretty basic figures. I mean, they're for kids, really. They're kiddie toys. I don't think they're meant to appeal to adult collectors. I think these are for kids. You know, kids go on the ride, they go to the souvenir shop, they want something, here you go. But it would be nice to have collector quality figures of these characters. That would also be nice. To have more elaborate, more expensive, collector-oriented figures. So this is a big change in style. This is the Caretaker. And he's part of this, the Haunted Mansion scene. He's in one of the scenes. And yeah, that's what he looks like. I like his dog. Dog's cute. A little scared dog. Aww. But you can see it's a very different style from the ghosts. And he's very articulated. More articulated than you would expect. It has accessories. Now this looks like kind of like the characters in the MPC Haunted Mansion 1970s model kits. I could see this guy in one of those model kits. He would be right at home in one of those kits. He's the most colorful one. He's really the only colorful one in the set. And now the last one. This is the Bride. Now she's a neat figure. She's neat. She's spooky. Look at that. She's a spooky little ghost. So I remember the Bride, but I don't remember what she's doing. I remember she's there. She's on the, she's in the ride. The ride is comprised of all these different scenes, and you ride through like a dark ride. You're in a car, and you ride through these different scenes, and these different things are happening in each scene. So I remember the Bride is in one of those scenes, or I remember the character, but I don't remember what she's doing. And she does have a face. You probably can't see it on camera, but there is a face under there, so just like you might expect, a white ghostly face. She does have a face, though, trust me. She's pretty cool. She might be the coolest of the set. She's a spooky, weird character. I like her. Yeah, I think I'm going to call her the best of the set. She's neat. Well, there we go. 2 sets of ghost figures. I felt like I couldn't. That Shadowbox set was just too short. too few characters. I couldn't let it go at that. So I had to give you a little bit more material for an episode, so it was worth your while. And you saw my childhood Poe book. So there you go. Do you feel like this was worth your time? I hope so. Ghosts, 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 ghosts. More ghosts. Lots of ghosts. Ghost action figures. Little ghost figures. Translucent ghosts. Glow-in-the-dark ghosts. And I don't think these Disney figures glow in the dark. Just from the way they look, you'd think they would, but I don't think they do. Yeah, I don't think they do. They look like they would, but I don't think they do. But the Shadowbox ones, they definitely glow in the dark. Well, what else can we say about these? Nothing really. I've never had an experience with a ghost. I can relate to my mom, who's passed away. She died in 2000. My mom had lots of ghost experiences. And she grew up in Egypt, and there were lots of ghosts in Egypt, apparently. And other stuff. There was a dragon, all kinds of stuff. A levitating guy. It was like Pan's Labyrinth over there in Egypt, apparently, where she grew up. But during my lifetime, she talked about an incident after my grandfather died. My grandfather in the United States. She was in the basement of my grandparents' house, and it was the day he died. They had taken his body away, and she was in the basement cleaning up something, and the lights went off. And she said, my grandfather's name was Joe. She said, "Is that you, Joe?" And the lights went back on again. And then when my mother died in 2000, she had this inflatable pillow that you use on airplanes. She bought it at an airport, and when she went on a plane to go to Egypt, she would have this inflatable cushion, and it was in its original box. She always returned it to its box, and it was in a closet that was adjacent to the kitchen. It was on a shelf, and it was flat on the shelf, like these are flat on the surface. This box is flat on the shelf, not leaning or anything. And I don't know if it was the day she died or I think it was the day after she died. My dad and I were obviously talking about the fact that Mom just died. And my dad walked past this closet, which was open, and this box that had Mom's cushion went off the closet shelf and on the floor right behind, like as he walked. It went right as he walked past, right behind him, and landed on the floor behind him. And he turned around, and I stood up, and it was sitting on the floor. And it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't sliding or leaning. There was no reason for that to just come off the shelf like that. There was, it defied the laws of physics. There was nothing to propel it. It wasn't on a slope. It was on a flat surface with no obstructions or anything. And my dad just walked past, and the thing went off right past him. Just as he walked past it, it went right behind him and landed just behind him. So that's the only little ghost incident that I've experienced. The only thing that could be chalked up to ghost activity. That's it for this episode. Thank you for watching. I hope you're spooked. Spooky ghost toys. Ooh, I hope you're spooked. Until next time, the one who dies with the most toys is dead.